Anakin Skywalker's life had always been shaped by visions, glimpses of a future that tormented him. But on Mortis, when the sun showed him a vision of the galaxy's fate, it was unlike any he had seen before. It wasn't Padme's death, nor the fall of the Republic. It was something far more personal. In the sun's vision, Anakin stood over the broken bodies of Darth Sidious and Obi-Wan Kenobi, their lifeless forms scattered amidst the ruins of Coruscant. Around him, Jedi and Sith alike were obliterated, their power nothing compared to the raging storm of the Force he wielded. Anakin saw himself, not as a slave to prophecy or an agent of another's design, but as a force of nature unyielding, unstoppable, and unchallenged. The sun's voice coiled around Anakin's thoughts, soft yet insidious. They all betray you, Anakin. The Jedi fear your power, the Sith seek to exploit it. Only I understand your true potential. Together we will destroy them all and shape the galaxy as it was meant to be. For a moment, Anakin resisted. He clung to the teachings of the Jedi, to the whispers of duty and balance. But the vision lingered in his mind, a clarity he could not ignore. In it, there was no suffering, no Padme dying in childbirth, no Republic torn asunder by war. There was only him free of chains, unbound by the expectations of others. When the Father intervened, urging Anakin to reject the Son's offer, his words fell on deaf ears. The Chosen One had made his choice. Together, Anakin and the Son struck the Father down, his ancient wisdom silenced forever. The balance of Mortis shattered, and as the realm began to collapse, the Son extended his hand to Anakin. Come. Let us fulfill your destiny. When Anakin returned to the galaxy, he was no longer the Jedi Knight who had left it. The Son's dark influence coursed through him, amplifying his connection to the Force to unimaginable levels. The Jedi Order's teachings, once a source of guidance, now felt like shackles that had bound him to mediocrity. Their insistence on restraint, on denying emotions, had only blinded him to the truth. Emotions were not a weakness, they were his greatest strength. His first act upon returning was to confront Darth Sidious. The Sith Lord had long manipulated Anakin, dangling promises of power and Padme's salvation to lure him to the dark side. But now, Anakin saw through his lies. The Son had shown him the futility of the Sith's greed, their endless cycle of betrayal and destruction. Sidious, for all his cunning, was nothing more than a parasite feeding on the galaxy's decay. Anakin found Sidious in his private chambers on Coruscant, a place thick with the dark side. The Sith Lord, cloaked in arrogance, welcomed him with a sinister smile. "Ah, Lord Vader," Sidious began, his voice dripping with satisfaction. "You have returned to me, as I knew you would. Together we will." Sidious never finished his sentence. Anakin raised his hand, and the Force surged through him like a tidal wave. The Sith Lord was lifted off the ground, his words choked into silence as the air was ripped from his lungs. Sidious struggled, summoning his own dark power to resist, but Anakin's strength was overwhelming. With a flick of his wrist, Anakin hurled Sidious against the wall, his body crumpling like a broken doll. "You are nothing to me," Anakin said, his voice cold and devoid of mercy. "You've had your time. Now, it ends." Sidious unleashed a torrent of Force lightning, its jagged arcs illuminating the room in flashes of blue. Anakin stepped through it, his body shielded by the Sun's power. When he reached Sidious, he ignited his lightsaber and plunged it into the Sith Lord's chest. The lightning ceased, and Sidious's lifeless body fell to the floor. The galaxy's most feared manipulator was no more. But Anakin's crusade had only just begun. He turned his attention to the Jedi, the order that had betrayed him long before the Sith had ever manipulated him. Their hypocrisy, their fear of his power, had driven him to the brink. They had never trusted him, never seen him as anything more than a tool for their war. Now, he would show them the cost of their blindness. With the Son's guidance, Anakin orchestrated a plan to dismantle the Jedi Order from within. He returned to the Jedi Temple on Coruscant, feigning loyalty and repentance. The Jedi Council, desperate for unity in the face of the Clone Wars, welcomed him back cautiously. But Anakin's presence was a Trojan horse. Over the weeks that followed, he used his influence to sow doubt and discord among the Jedi. The Son's mastery of manipulation allowed Anakin to exploit their fears and insecurities, driving wedges between the council members. Jedi began to question the wisdom of their leaders, and whispers of dissent spread like wildfire. When the time was right, Anakin struck. On the eve of a major battle in the Clone Wars, he unleashed his fury within the Jedi Temple. The Son manifested as a shadowy specter, his power amplifying Anakin's strength tenfold. Together they tore through the Jedi ranks, slaughtering everyone in their path. Masters, knights, and Padawans alike fell before Anakin's blade, their lightsabers no match for the storm of the Force he wielded. The temple burned, its spires collapsing into ash as Anakin and the Son emerged victorious. The Jedi Order, centuries old, was reduced to ruins in a single night. Only a handful of Jedi survived, fleeing into exile as Anakin declared himself the sole master of the Force. The galaxy trembled at the revelation of Anakin's power. With both the Jedi and the Sith destroyed, there was no one left to oppose him. The Republic, weakened by years of war, crumbled under his might. Coruscant became the seat of his new dominion, a dark and twisted reflection of the Republic it had once been. But Anakin was not a tyrant in the mold of the Sith. He had no interest in ruling through fear or greed. His vision was one of pure order, a galaxy united under his singular will. The Son, his eternal ally, served as his enforcer, rooting out any remnants of rebellion or opposition. Together they brought a brutal peace to the galaxy, a peace built on the ashes of the old ways. Padme Amidala, witnessing Anakin's transformation, was torn between love and horror. She saw the man she had loved consumed by power, his idealism warped into something unrecognizable. Yet she also saw the stability he brought to a galaxy long plagued by chaos. For all his ruthlessness, Anakin achieved what the Jedi and the Sith never could: an end to war. But peace came at a cost. The galaxy's freedom, its diversity of thought and belief, was sacrificed on the altar of Anakin's vision. He ruled as a god, untouchable and unchallenged. The Force itself seemed to bend to his will, its light and dark aspects fused into a singular, overwhelming power. And yet, deep within him, a fragment of the man he once was remained. Anakin Skywalker, the boy from Tatooine who had dreamed of freeing slaves and saving lives, was still there, buried beneath the weight of his choices. As he looked out over the galaxy he had conquered, a part of him wondered if he had truly brought balance to the Force, or if he had simply replaced one tyranny with another. The Son, ever watchful, whispered in his ear, "You are the chosen one, Anakin. You have done what no Jedi or Sith could. This galaxy is yours, as it was always meant to be." Anakin said nothing, his gaze fixed on the stars. They seemed so far away now, their light dimmed by the shadow he had become. Anakin Skywalker, now wielding the Force in ways neither Jedi nor Sith had ever imagined, stood atop the galaxy like a colossus. With the Son as his eternal ally and guide, their conquest extended beyond the eradication of the Jedi and Sith. What followed was a systematic dismantling of the remnants of old power structures: the Republic, the Separatists, and even the ancient traditions that governed planetary systems. The galaxy they sought to create was one where no power could rival their own, a universe of order, unclouded by dogma or corruption. Yet their journey was not without its challenges. The destruction of the Jedi Order had scattered survivors across the stars, some of whom clung to their teachings and waged guerrilla wars against Anakin's dominion. Likewise, the Sith, though decimated with Sidious's death, were never truly extinguished. The dark side bred hunger, and new acolytes arose, seeking to claim the void Anakin had left in their hierarchy. Anakin and the Son roamed the galaxy as living avatars of the Force itself, confronting these lingering threats head-on. They hunted the Jedi survivors, following faint trails of their presence through the Force. On the barren plains of Jedha, Anakin faced Mace Windu, who had survived their earlier battles through sheer will and mastery of the Force. The duel was fierce, a clash of philosophies as much as blades. "You've become the very thing you swore to destroy," Skywalker Windu spat, his lightsaber glowing like a shard of dying hope. Anakin's response was devoid of anger, yet filled with unrelenting conviction. "I've become what the galaxy needs." "The Jedi's time is over, Mace. You refuse to see it." Their battle ended in silence, with Windu lying motionless and Anakin walking away, his blade extinguished. The old Jedi's passing marked the final death knell of the Jedi Order's influence. But the Sith were not so easily subdued. Across the galaxy, dark side practitioners emerged, each claiming to carry the true legacy of the Sith. The Son found them amusing, toying with their minds and pitting them against one another. Anakin, however, saw them as dangerous distractions. On the volcanic world of Mustafar, he faced Darth Mortis, a Sith warlord who had gathered a following by preying on fear and chaos. Their duel was as much a contest of wills as strength, with Anakin demonstrating that his mastery of both the light and dark sides rendered the Sith philosophy obsolete. "You cling to shadows," Anakin said, as he struck the final blow, his saber cutting through the Sith Lord's defenses. "The Sith are as blind as the Jedi. Both are relics of failure." Each victory further solidified Anakin's power. Yet, even as he destroyed his enemies, questions lingered within him. The prophecy of the Chosen One spoke of balance, of bringing harmony to the Force. Had he achieved that, or had he merely tilted the scales toward chaos? The Son, always at his side, dismissed such doubts. "Balance is an illusion," the Son would say, his form shifting like a living shadow. "The Force thrives on power, on will. You have given it purpose. That is all that matters." But Anakin's introspection deepened as he gazed upon the galaxy he had reshaped. The wars had ended. The Jedi and Sith were no more. Yet the peace he had created came at a cost. It was rigid, cold, and devoid of the individuality that once defined the galaxy. Planets submitted to his rule not out of love or respect, but because of the fear his name invoked. Even Padme, who had remained by his side longer than he had expected, could no longer hide her unease. "This isn't what I fought for, Anakin," she said one evening, her voice trembling. "You wanted to save the galaxy, to bring peace. But this is tyranny." Her words struck deeper than any blade. Anakin, for all his power, found himself unable to respond. The Son's influence whispered a soothing justification, but Anakin silenced him. For the first time, he truly questioned whether his actions, for all their effectiveness, had betrayed the very ideals he had once held. The turning point came when Anakin and the Son ventured to Ahch-To, the ancient birthplace of Jedi teachings. In the ruins of the First Temple, Anakin felt the raw power of the Force as it once was primal, unshaped by ideology. It was neither light nor dark, but something greater. In that moment, he realized the truth of the prophecy. The Force was never meant to be controlled by the Jedi or the Sith. Balance was not about domination, but about freedom, about allowing the Force to exist in its purest form. Anakin turned to the Son, who had been silent for once, his expression unreadable. "You used me," Anakin said, his voice steady. "You showed me what I wanted to see, but you're no different from the Jedi or the Sith. You only wanted to use me to escape your prison." The Son smiled, though there was no joy in it. "And yet, you are free because of me. Would you truly undo all that we've accomplished?" Anakin ignited his lightsaber. "This isn't balance, it's slavery, yours and mine." The battle that followed was unlike any other Anakin had fought. The Son, unshackled by Mortis, was a manifestation of the dark side itself, his power infinite and unrelenting. Yet Anakin, drawing on his connection to the Force in its entirety, matched him blow for blow. Their struggle raged across the ruins of Ahch-To, the very fabric of the Force trembling as their wills clashed. In the end, it was Anakin who triumphed. With a final, devastating strike, he severed the Son's connection to the Force, banishing him back to the void from which he had come. As the Son faded, his voice echoed one last time. "You've fulfilled the prophecy, Chosen One. The galaxy is yours, for now." Anakin stood alone amidst the ruins, the weight of his choices bearing down on him. He had destroyed the Jedi, the Sith, and now the Son. The galaxy, for the first time in millennia, was free of their influence. But it came at a cost. His vision of peace had left scars across the stars, and his name would forever be associated with fear and conquest. Yet, as he meditated in the silence of Aj-2, Anakin felt something new in the Force. It was no longer fractured, no longer pulled between light and dark. It was whole, flowing freely for the first time in millennia. He understood then that he had fulfilled the prophecy, though not in the way the Jedi had imagined. By destroying both the Jedi and the Sith, he had freed the Force from the chains of ideology. Balance was not about choosing a side, but about erasing the division altogether. Anakin returned to Coruscant, not as a conqueror, but as a man weary of war. He relinquished his control over the galaxy, allowing planets to govern themselves. His actions had created a new era, one without Jedi or Sith, where the Force could exist unbound by dogma. As he disappeared into the unknown regions, leaving the galaxy to heal, his legacy remained. Anakin Skywalker, the Chosen One, had brought balance to the Force not through allegiance to light or dark, but by destroying the structures that had perpetuated their endless conflict. The galaxy would never forget him, but for the first time in centuries, it was truly free.